I have a German Shepherd and I would never put an e-collar on him. Let's talk about why. So this commenter is asking about ways to increase agency and whether it's a good idea to work with a trainer and an e-collar. And these are great, important questions. Using an e-collar is going to directly reduce agency, and it's going to increase perception of threat. And this conversation is actually bigger than tools. The question is, when our dog behaves, whether it's in a way that we like or a way that we don't like, do we respond in a way that lets them know that we hear them? Do we support them in moving through that moment of distress? Or do we suppress the behavior? E-collars are just one example of how we can suppress behavior. So the dog does something, which is an expression of their emotions, an expression of their arousal state, their distress, an expression of communication. And we have the consequence of that communication, that expression of how they're experiencing the world, paired with something aversive to them. So then that behavior decreases. This would be like if you went to a friend and said, God, I'm just so upset. And they consistently responded to that in an aversive way. Maybe they said something like, oh, you're always complaining. Or they hit us. It doesn't really matter. The point is that if they respond in an aversive way, we're going to stop going to that friend and saying, oh, I feel so bad. I'm so frustrated. I'm so overwhelmed. We're going to learn that the expression of that overwhelm actually leads to consequences that make us feel worse, that increase our perception of threat. Now, not only is the original distress distressing, but we know that if we express that distress, we are now threatening our connection to this person, or something physically painful is going to happen, or our autonomy is going to be restricted. There's going to be an additional layer of threat added on to a situation where we already perceive threat or feel very bad. And so regardless of how we go about it, we want to ensure that we are never trying to suppress our dog's behaviors. Instead, we want to look at the underlying function of the behavior. The behavior is a symptom. And so theoretically, I would need a lot more information about this specific dog. But if I have a dog who generally enjoys playing with other dogs off leash and gets very aroused and behaves in a reactive way on leash, I might wonder if the dog is frustrated. So I might aim at ensuring social needs are met, increasing predictability, working on building self-regulatory skills, and enhancing resilience to stress. And that's very different than shutting down the behaviors. A huge part of agency is being able to be heard. If the people around you can't understand you when you communicate, you lose a lot of ability to impact your environment. You will feel very helpless. And that's what life is like for dogs most of the time. They have to get very loud for us to hear them. And often we misunderstand them even when they're very loud. And then a lot of the times we turn around and say, God, you're so loud, stop. And that is a direct decrease in agency and well-being.